Gary, sign over the $700,000 shop now, or I'll expose your embezzling. My new wife Elena whispered this at the altar while the minister was still speaking. She thought she had me trapped in front of all of Nashville's elite. I didn't blink. I didn't even look at her. I just took the pen and signed the transfer document waiting on the pedestal. But I didn't sign my name normally. I added two small words in the margin. Restricted capacity. 19 hours later, her access to the revenue trust was stone cold dead. Her face went white at the wedding brunch when the trustee called. She was out. She hadn't checked the one thing that mattered, the blue spiral notebook in my floor safe. That notebook was the one thing that would undo every lie she'd spent months plotting. I've spent 40 years in Tennessee construction. You don't survive that long by being careless with your foundations. Elena was 30 years younger. She saw a man she thought she could liquidate. She'd spent months fabricating a paper trail of theft from my own company accounts. She was building a cage to force my hand. She wanted my primary asset, the commercial shop on Broadway. When we stood at that altar, she thought public pressure would protect her. She thought I'd do anything to avoid a scene. She was wrong. I wouldn't make a scene. I would just stop providing the oxygen for her lifestyle. The moment she whispered that threat, I stopped being her husband and became her reality check. By adding those two words to the document, all her access froze instantly. No calls, no arguments, just her plan unraveling. I didn't have to fight her. I just had to sign in a way that proved I wasn't acting of my own free will. The morning after the ceremony, she was busy ordering the most expensive breakfast on the room service menu. She was already spending money she didn't have, but the machinery was already turning. The accounts she used for the house staff and the vehicles didn't just slow down, they ceased to exist. She walked back into the suite, her phone shaking in her hand. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Gary, the revenue flow is frozen. They're asking about the signature. I didn't look up from my coffee. I just set my blue notebook on the table. It's no mistake, Elena. You wanted the shop. Now you have to deal with the man who actually owns it. She thought she was marrying a sunset. She didn't realize I was the storm. The silence in the house didn't feel like peace. It felt like a countdown. I sat at the mahogany desk in my study, the blue spiral notebook open under the lamp. I wasn't looking at numbers anymore. I was looking at the anatomy of a betrayal. Elena hadn't just moved money. She'd moved my trust into an offshore account and labeled it miscellaneous. The clicking of her heels hit the hardwood like the steady drumbeat of a losing battle. She walked in, leading with a demand. Gary, the bank is still flagging the signature. They're calling it a procedural hitch. Fix it. I have caterers calling me every 10 minutes. I didn't look up. I just watched her reflection in the dark window glass. She was twisting her wedding ring, a 3-carat mistake I'd paid cash for. Her hand was shaking, just a fraction, but it was there. The arrogance was still in her voice, but the rhythm of her breath was shallow. 40 years of precision won't bend for a hasty signature, Elena, I said quietly. She let out a sharp, jagged laugh. Precision? I have the records. I have the theft from the Broadway shop accounts. If you don't clear that signature by morning, I'm going to the board. I'll ruin the one thing you actually love, your name. It's a strange thing, hearing the woman you just married threaten to destroy you. I didn't feel anger, just a cold, heavy realization that I'd built skyscrapers, but failed to check the soil under my own home. You do what you have to do, I said. She stared at me, her eyes darting to the blue notebook. For a second, her mask slipped. The color drained from her cheeks. She reached for her phone, her movements jerky and frantic. She thought she was cornering me with her fake trail, but every move she made, I'd already anticipated. I didn't tell her I'd stopped the insurance on her Range Rover. I didn't tell her the assistant she'd hired, her brother, was already under a security audit. I just sipped my coffee and turned a page, waiting for the next crack to show. The first real tremor hit Tuesday morning. The kitchen was quiet. The only sound, the low hum of the refrigerator, in the scrape of my chair on the tile. Elena was on the phone, her voice hitting a sharp, ugly register I'd never heard during our 6-month whirlwind. "What do you mean, denied?" she snapped, her knuckles white against the marble island. "It's a corporate card. Run it again, manually." She slammed the phone face down. She was wearing a silk robe that cost more than my first work truck. It shimmered in the morning sun, but the sheen couldn't hide the frantic twitch in her fingers. "Gary, the American Express was declined at the boutique. It's embarrassing. Call the bank, now." I didn't look up from my notebook. I just took a slow, deliberate sip of black coffee. "I stopped the personal spending authorization on the shop accounts, Elena. Until the embezzlement you mentioned to the board is cleared up, I can't justify corporate funds for your shopping trips. It's a matter of compliance." She froze. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She'd spent months setting a trap, claiming I was stealing from my own company to force me into signing over the Broadway shop. Now, that very lie was the cage I was using to lock her out of the money. "You think you're smart," she hissed, leaning over the counter. Her breath was shallow. "But I have the emails. I have the signed authorizations showing you moved that $70,000. You have copies, Elena. I have the originals. And I have the server logs showing those emails were sent from your laptop while I was at the job site in Franklin." The silence was heavy. I watched a single bead of sweat track down her temple. That's when the third party made the move. Miller, my lead foreman, a man who's been with me since I was swinging a hammer, walked through the back door. He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on me, his shoulders tense. "Boss," Miller said, his voice like gravel. "Auditors finished with the files she hid in the shed. Every fake marketing fee traced back. Every dollar. Her brother." Elena didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just sat down on the bar stool, her knees pressing together as if she were trying to hold herself upright. The high society life she'd planned was evaporating, one declined transaction at a time. "What do you want?" she whispered, her voice hollow. I set my mug down with a soft, final clack. "I want you to realize something," I said quietly. "I didn't have to fight you. I just had to stop carrying you. Every lie, every scheme, you were playing checkers while I'd already finished the game." The air in the kitchen felt thin. Elena didn't move. She stared at Miller as if he were a ghost. But Miller wasn't a ghost. He was a man with 40 years of honest dirt under his fingernails, and he had no patience for a parasite. "Police are at your brother's place, Elena," Miller said. His voice was flat, devoid of heat. "They aren't there for the marketing fees. They're there for the equipment he reported stolen from the Broadway shop. The GPS trackers and the generators, they never left his garage." I didn't react. I just watched the way the sunlight caught the steam rising from my mug. Elena's breathing was ragged now. Her fingers twitched toward the blue notebook on the table, then fell limp to her lap. She'd spent months building a narrative that I was the one cutting corners. She thought accusing me first made her bulletproof. She didn't realize that in my world, we don't just build walls, we anchor them. "Gary, please," she whispered. Her shoulders hunched, the silk of her robe shivering. "We can fix this. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll tell the board I was confused, that I made a mistake with the records." "It's too late for a retraction, Elena," I said. I stood up slowly, stretching my back. The restricted capacity signature didn't just freeze the trust. It triggered the audit. By the time you whispered that threat at the altar, the wheels were already turning. I didn't have to call anyone. The system did its job. She looked at me, and for the first time, her mask didn't just slip. It shattered. The color stayed drained from her face, leaving her looking hollow. She'd spent 6 months trying to liquidate my life, and now she was looking at the bill. "You're going to let them take me?" she asked. Her voice was a dry crackle. I took one last sip of coffee. "I'm not letting them do anything. I've simply stopped standing in the way of the truth. You thought power was something you took. I know power is something you earn by being the man who shows up." The sound of sirens drifted in from the street. a low, mournful wail cutting through the Nashville morning. Miller tipped his cap to me and walked out the back door. He didn't look back at her. He didn't have to. The third party had arrived, and I was finally out of the line of fire. The blue lights of the cruisers pulsed against the kitchen walls. I didn't get up. I didn't need the spectacle. I'd already seen the truth in the blue notebook. Two officers walked in, men who recognize a person who has spent 40 years building this city's foundations. They didn't care about the silk robe or the 3-carat ring. They only cared about the warrants. As they led Elena toward the door, she paused. Her eyes went wide, realizing the trap she'd built for me had snapped shut on her instead. She didn't look like a mastermind anymore. She just looked like a stranger I'd accidentally invited into my home. The house grew quiet, not the heavy silence of a trap, but the clean silence of a job site after the machinery is finally turned off. I sat there for a long time, finishing my coffee. It was cold, but it tasted like peace. Miller came back an hour later. He didn't say much. He just set the blue notebook in the floor safe, the heavy click of the dial sounding like a period at the end of a long sentence. "Auditor's finished, Gary," he said. "The board cleared your name. Your reputation stands, untouched." I nodded. My name is the only thing I take with me when the job is over. Elena thought she could liquidate it like a piece of equipment. She didn't realize that a reputation isn't something you can steal. It's something you maintain, day after day, through every storm. I didn't sue her. I simply stopped providing the defense she needed to survive her own choices. Reality is a better debt collector than any attorney. That evening, I drove to the Broadway shop. The building she tried to hold over my head was still standing, solid and unmoving. I gripped the steering wheel and exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for months. I wasn't forgetful. I was seasoned. I didn't have to break her. I just had to stop holding her up.
So stories like these are like uncomfortable because they force you to draw a line. There is a massive difference between supporting someone and enabling them. Let me know. I will read the comments. And yeah, I'll see you in the next. Thank you. Thank you.